Welcome to Monster Monday.
Blood.
That's blood? That's blood. Perfect. That works. Okay, so the Fright Night remake, which I saw in theaters in 2011 in 3D. And did this film need to be in 3D? Did they just convert it over to try to make some money? Or was it actually shot to be in 3D? 100% it was shot to be in 3D. So, this was a result of Avatar, right? Obviously. Avatar converted a lot of movies over to 3D. Most of them just tried to add the 3D right after Avatar was super successful with 3D and kind of brought it back. Studios were rushing to have anything be 3D, so they were throwing 3D elements on top of movies that weren't supposed to be 3D. This one is clearly being shot for 3D. We got those, antics going on in here, those gags going on in here that you would see in Friday the 13th 3 and Jaws 3 and all that, where there's like things in the camera, being thrown at the camera constantly. So very much. And unfortunately, I really don't like when movies do this, because when you're not watching it in 3D, it's very obvious.
Yeah, it is.
And it takes you out of the movie.
It definitely, I wish that we could watch it in 3D, because, those moments are, really noticeable, and it's funny.
Yeah. So, I didn't see this in 3D, not because I chose to. In fact, I would have not, because at that time, it was just a gimmick for me, and I didn't think that this movie would be purposely done in 3D. So, I'm actually glad I saw it in 3D, because those scenes were cool, and at the end, when the vampires blow up, and there's the embers and the ashes flying out, dude, they were in the theater. That was the coolest 3D I've ever seen in any movie. I saw Avatar in 3D. I've seen a few things in 3D in my life, but the embers and the ashes were legit out in the theater. I was for a second is the theater on fire? Because it looked so real, and it was all over. It wasn't just some out here that were kind of popped out of the screen. They were everywhere in the theater.
That's really cool.
It was wild looking, and I was like, whoa, that was good. You could make the whole movie like that. That would be super cool. So I don't really know how they did that. But moving on from that. Fright Night, the remake. We got Anton Yelchin. Rest in peace, buddy. The cast in this is pretty wild.
Yeah.
I did not remember Toni Collette being the mom.
Oh my god, I was like, what?
Yeah.
She's in this? That was cool.
Yeah, so you got Anton Yelchin,
who
plays Charlie Brewster. You've got Colin Farrell, who plays Jerry Dandridge.
Yeah.
You've got Toni Collette playing the mom. You've got Imogen Poots playing Amy, the girlfriend. You've got frickin' Fogel or McLovin playing Evil Ed. You've got Dave Franco playing some random douchebag.
Yeah.
And then you've got frickin' David Tennant.
Yeah.
Playing Peter Vincent.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It's a really, really star-studded cast.
Yes.
Of faces
great actors. Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, that's right. I didn't remember that Imogen Poots was in this. I didn't remember that Tennant was in this. I did not remember that Toni Collette was in this. I remembered Anton Yelchin. I remembered Colin Farrell, and I remembered frickin' Chris Mintz, whatever, fucking McLovin. Mm-hmm. I remember those people, but nobody else.
That's funny.
When I saw Dave Franco, I was like, oh yeah, I knew he was in this. This was back when he was getting cast as only the douchebag.
Yeah.
He was just the go-to douchebag.
Always the go-to douche.
Yeah. But what do you think of this compared to the original? I know it's not as good, but
yeah, I mean, I think this is it's a good movie. It's a good remake. I definitely enjoyed watching it, and I don't have a ton of problems or anything with it. I just definitely prefer the original. Sure. I think that the original for me, it has the 80s charm, which is really big, but it also has more of that sexuality that I was talking about in our review, which I personally really love in vampire movies, when that's included in a successful way, and I think that the original Fright Night does that. I did not get that sense at all from this. This movie felt much more like it like grimier maybe. I don't know. Colin Farrell, like, he's very attractive. He does play him really well, but he wasn't as sexy to me. And I kind of feel like that was like that part missing from the character, like, took away from the film on a level, because it's like, you know, he didn't have that, like, the relationship with him and what's the girlfriend's name? Oh my god, Amy. Like, I just didn't feel their attraction as much. Like, I know it happens pretty quickly in the original Fright Night, but for some reason in this, I feel like it happened, like, way too, like, there wasn't any, like, lead up. There was, like, he sees her out front, like, when they're introducing, and then, like, the next time that they're together, he's, like, going after her, and I don't know. I think that's probably...
Well, he just straight up attacks her.
Yeah.
Right?
He attacks her,
in the original... He seduces her, right? So she's drawn to his magnetism, his sexuality in the original. In this, he's just straight up, a vampire, a predator. So,
which is fine. That's like the scarier part. I think that this film was going for more scary, even though I think the original Fright Night, like, actually does have some great scary moments in it, like really terrifying effects. And the effects in this were fine. I think that they were good callbacks to the original effects in the Fright Night.
The shark mouth.
The shark mouth, for sure. I really liked Peter Vincent's character in this, and that's probably mostly because it's David Tennant, but I also just like that he's like a Vegas magician.
Chris Angel.
Yeah, he's Chris Angel, and I think he's really funny. I mean, I love David Tennant, and I definitely actually found him more attractive than Colin Farrell in this. But that's just because I like Doctor Who and I'm a nerd with that. No, I just think that I like what they did with his character, like making him this like cheesy magician, but like it's like a newer version of the Peter Vincent, who would have been on like late night television shows, right? So all of that.
It's modernized.
Yeah, I like how they modernized everything. I like... all of that. I liked Ed in this too. I definitely like that there's more of a relationship between Brewster, Charlie and Ed. Like, we actually see that they had a falling out, and like they're actively like kind of fighting with each other and everything. And I feel like in the original we don't get a lot on them because it's much more focused on Charlie, I think, than Ed. So I liked all of that, and there was some surprising changes that I enjoyed.
So Colin Farrell originally wanted script changes because he thought that his character was being portrayed too much as a sexual predator, and that would kind of... I don't know why he thought that, but I'm assuming it's because in the original, Chris Sarandon, who does make a cameo here, and is killed by Jerry Dandridge, so you got Jerry killing Jerry. Little meta moment there, but you are lacking the sexuality. Like, Colin Farrell is, probably, if you were to poll 100 people, Colin Farrell's probably going to win in a looks competition between him and Chris Sarandon. Like, if you showed 100 women his picture, like, he's gonna probably get picked 90% of the time. But that doesn't cross over here to, like, it doesn't matter how attractive the guy is. It's the way it's portrayed, and it's the way that it's sold. And Colin Farrell in this, his character is just a predator, period. As to where Sarandon's is he is a sexual seduction.
But but Jerry is a sexual predator. Like, that, it does
Sure,
fit.
he is.
Like, he is. Like, he uses it to get his food.
It is, but he's more alluring about it.
Yes,
like,
much more alluring.
The only time you really get that with Jerry is like when he's out front fixing whatever, and the mom's hitting on him, and Amy comes up, and he's like this sexy guy with the broad shoulders that like is the everyman that the chicks want. So that's like the only scene where it's like even suggested at that he's like Mr. Sexuality that like is drawing women in, but for the rest of the movie he's just scary vampire guy. So they kind of just dropped that, and they're going for much more of a horror feeling, right? Like, this movie pretty much drops most of the comedy. There's some with David Tennant because he's just ridiculous. He kind of reminds me of like Russell Brand in Get Him to the Greek or something, right? So there is that kind of comedy coming from him, and they definitely changed his character quite a bit. Peter Vincent is wildly different in this. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting because you do have that kind of like the sexuality and the romance and the seduction on screen. Like, to me, like, Imogen Poots is way hotter than Amanda Beers, right? Yeah. Like, I don't think Amanda Beers, or however you say her name, she's fine. She's cute. She's fine back then. But Imogen Poots is fucking amazingly gorgeous. But there isn't that sexuality, right? No. So there is, like, I'm more turned on by, even though Imogen is hotter, way hotter, I'm not as attracted to her in the scene where, like, Amanda or Amy from the 85 version is like the seductress before she gets the shark mouth. And she's like in that kind of see-through. Yeah, it's a body double. We did find that out. Those were fake tits, as I had called. It was a like prosthetic chest, which I figured. Because I was like, there's no way she has that body. But that scene, the way it was done, shot. Now, if they put Imogen in that scene, of course, I'd be like, oh my God, this is better. But they didn't, so there is no sexuality. So there is no like attraction. So that is completely lost here. Everybody in the movie is better looking, right? So this is like a better looking cast, but it's not as sexy. So that's weird.
Yeah, I actually prefer
Chris Sarandon.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm just saying.
But I know what you mean, though. But yeah, like everybody, they have like the now, people, like they look like, for whatever reason, a lot of people, like modern actors and actresses are like, they're more like polished or something. Sure. I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I do think like the cast overall is more attractive, but they took all the sensuality and sexuality out, so it's just like kind of wasted in some ways. And you know, like Amy's relationship with Charlie is also like, it's different because she's not as like shy and prudish, or not that she's a prude, but like she's not as shy and like proper as the Amy in the original. Like she wants to sleep with him, like she's she's a girlfriend, like she's definitely like embraced that role. And so I feel like having, you know, it's also like that's a modern take. Like most, you know, high school girls now like would be like that. Like there's not as much stigma, but because that's taken out, it's kind of like her character doesn't have as much of a purpose, because in the original, like having that back and forth where like, you know, Charlie's trying to come onto her and then she's like no, and then she's trying to come onto Charlie and then he's like no, like there's some comedic and like sad stuff going on there, and then her seduction later on like makes sense because she's like trying to, you know, she's like sexually frustrated. And with this, it's like they just have the one like bit of her getting rejected by Charlie and just being like, fine, I'm gonna leave, like, you know, I'm not gonna waste my time. Yeah. So I just feel like there's not a whole lot of payoff with her character, and it's kind of a little pointless in some ways, because I don't feel like it was used well. Yeah. So, but I liked the ending. You know, I like all the bodies, like all the other vampires that are compiled, because he's like part of a tribe. Like I thought that stuff was cool, and you know, like I like the horror parts of it. I like the whole car scene, like the car chase stuff was really cool. And you know, Toni Collette's not in this much, but I like her use. You know, she's such a fantastic actress. So
yeah, I love the Vegas setting. I think
me too.
I think that Vegas is like the perfect location for a vampire. That we don't see enough in film, because it's like the city of sin, and there's like people that are out partying and having fun and could be very easily lured into bad situations and would never, you know, go missing, and people are like, well,
they went to Vegas
and shit got crazy, right? Like, who knows?
And also the nightlife too,
and the nightlife,
right?
exactly.
Like, yeah, everyone's out at night,
exactly.
Totally, so, I loved that setting too.
Vegas makes perfect sense, and they need to put more vampire movies in Vegas. Yes. So really cool setting change there. It's really only for that. The writer of this actually wrote 30 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, cool.
So probably why they hired her on to rewrite the script.
Okay.
So That's cool.
Yeah.
And when I don't know how Colin Farrell knew where the hell the gas line was for the house.
Oh my god.
Specifically, but
it's
like
so ridiculous.
the chunks
Dude.
of earth that he was moving with his shovel. I feel like while you might be strong enough to do that, the shovel wouldn't be. The shovel would break.
Yeah.
Right? Unless that was a metal shovel. It wasn't. It had a wood handle. That shit would break if you tried to lift that much earth.
Oh my god.
Because he just is throwing chunks this big of earth, and it's like no shovel could take the stress of that weight on it. So, but it was still funny, and then I had to question, like, wait, what?
Like what?
Like,
is that?
how does he know where the gas is? And then he lights it and blows the house up, and he's like, I don't need an invitation if there's no house.
Dude,
that was great.
That was wonderful. Yeah, like there's those kinds of changes. Like I really liked it because it's like this was I think when people remake movies like. We tried watching, you've already seen it, but we tried watching like the Psycho remake, and I was just, it's like, it's shot for shot, and it's kind of like, why bother doing a shot for shot remake?
That's inferior. And in this case, I feel it's like, same kind of thing. Like, Fright Night is beloved by so many people, and like they remade it, so there's a lot of similarities, but they do change things, and I think that the things that were changed are cool. Yeah.
And work.
Yeah. I also like the addition of like, when he comes to school and like, little by little, more and more people are missing from class. Yeah. That's very like Salem's Lot kind of stuff. So I'm always going to be a big fan of that. Him letting the like hot chick from next door that he seduces now YED people on his own street. That seems stupid to me. Shit where you eat kind of thing. But like he brings her over, he locks her up because he's going to feed on her for a while, and then he purposely lets them go. Because he knows it's daylight outside, and she's just gonna like
explode that.
Yeah, she's just gonna get rid of all the evidence.
Right, that was great.
And he just laughs.
Oh my god,
that's an evil scene.
It's so evil, and it was very unexpected. I was like, okay, they're escaping, and then she just explodes and blows up. I was like, what? He's much more like I feel like he's killing a lot more people, like because he kills like the not James Franco, Dave Franco's character and the other guy, and yeah, there's gonna be more deaths. It's horror. Yeah, he kills a bunch of bodyguards and whatever for Peter Vincent. I also really loved the video footage and him not showing up on it. Yeah. Like I think all that's really cool. Like when they see Ed's footage of like the wheelbarrow moving without any, because he's just not. And then obviously the security footage, he's not showing up. I think all that's really neat. Peter Vincent is not convinced through a mirror this time. It's like some kind of symbol that that's like, because he's more of like a historian on this kind of stuff, but he doesn't believe it at all. Like every single thing about him is fake, but which is cool. Has a good explanation too, because he's like his parents were attacked. Sure. Right, and I liked that because it kind of is a throwback to Fright Night 2, where he's like, I convinced myself that they weren't real. Yeah. Which is obviously what Charlie does in Fright Night 2. You also have Ed forgiving Charlie as he's dying. Yeah. He's like, it's okay, Brewster. That's cool. I like the use of "you're so cool, Brewster" in here because it's a mocking way of like, Charlie doesn't want to hang out with Ed anymore because he's too cool for him now. Yeah. And he has a hot girlfriend, and he's just like, I got cool friends. And he like goes over and he's like, oh, you're so cool, Brewster. Like, you're a fucking loser. Yeah. Yeah. I like that, like, because they took the iconic line, and they flipped it. Even though that's kind of how Ed meant it, the way it's delivered here is very obvious. Like, he's like a dig at him. Yeah. So that was good. I liked that. The fact that Jerry does not sleep in a coffin at all, that the whole coffin gag is moved out of here, and he just kind of attacks him with his minions, and then he has this like flame suit that he carabiners himself to him as he kind of flaps around and tries to get away with from him. All that stuff was cool. I liked those additions. Ridiculous, pretty convoluted plan, but super ridiculous, but fun. It was it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. I have to call some bullshit. Once again, I'm always calling out like police procedure. Oh. And once again, here we go. Fire department procedures. Oh my gosh, yeah. He comes home to a burnt out house. This happened recently, very recently.
There are no cars on the scene. There's no tape. There's nothing being roped off.
Like, people would have been like, there's a house on fire on our street. Like, the next door neighbor, the other next door neighbor.
Yeah, but the whole place, at bare minimum, the whole place would be a crime scene.
Yes.
There'd be tape everywhere. It'd be roped off. There'd probably be still fire, department firefighters and the chief of friggin' whatever, all on the premises still. This only happened a few hours ago. The fact that he just comes home and it's just burnout and there's nothing to do about anything there.
Yeah.
It's like, it looks like it was on fire. It eventually went out and no one noticed.
Yes.
That's the way it looks. And it's like, bro,
people would
bro,
know.
they're in Vegas. This isn't some but I like the way the town is set up because it's like this new housing tract kind of, even though Ed and him have known each other their whole life. And they both live in that same tract. So I don't understand. But regardless, they're in this like little tract and it's kind of isolated.
Yes, I liked that too. It's like actually really scary looking because it's like it is all flat around them and so far away from Vegas or from like the main part of Vegas.
And Charlie is still not a great boyfriend, totally distracted from sex. But in this, they make it make way more sense.
Yes.
Because at this point, he knows he's a vampire.
And he literally has that interaction with him downstairs like moments before. Totally much more believable. So, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that's the only excuse you have for Imogen Poots trying to come onto you and you're like too distracted. You have to have ran into a vampire for me to not think you're...
I really actually liked the scene before when he's with Jerry and he's like getting him the beer and he's like not coming in the house and Jerry keeps being like, oh, like let me help you or like blah blah. He's like trying to goad him. He's trying to get in there so much, and I do think that his performance, like he does play the scary vampire pretty well. Like he's very intimidating and like so he did a good job with that for sure. But that's a great scene. Yeah, and Charlie at that point is on the fence. So he's kind of being like, we'll see. And then the more he's kind of letting himself in on the fact, like he's letting himself be known. Right. And it's like he knows at that point. And that's the worst. When he knows, when Charlie knows that he knows that he knows. Yeah. It's like, oh, shit. Yeah. So, that's that. Fright Night Remake. We only got one left, Fright Night Part 2, which is not good. But we're going to talk about it. So that's next week. I look forward to it, and we will see you then. See you then. There we go. We did a Stephen King Saturday, Slasher Sunday, and a Monster Monday back to back to back. All right. We're good. See how I'm still wearing my Stephen King shirt from that review? My Salem shirt? I've never been to Salem. I got this at a thrift store. Yeah, we're posers. Posers. I've never met Stephen King. All right.